Hello there, hope you are doing well and welcome to my first video of 2025. Hope you had a great holiday. We certainly had a great holiday here in Hong Kong. Not only did we have Christmas, we have just got to the end of Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year, whatever you want to call it. It is now the year of the snake. We are through the first month of the year. January has ended, we are in February, and it's gloomy and it's cold. So I am absolutely freezing here in my studio in Hong Kong. But there is a lot to talk about. I fully expected that the year was going to begin with a bit of a bang. We had Trump's inauguration. We had all the things that he was going to do, mainly tariff related, but he's certainly a bit like a bull in a China shop at the moment. That's quite a good analogy, actually. I might use that for something else. But it's been quite a rocky and interesting ride. So a few things that I want to talk about. One is the AI war that we are now in, but a lot of it is what's happening in terms of the tech space. And we've seen, whether for good or for bad, possibly for bad, who knows, some of my tech predictions already start to come true. So I was watching the Trump inauguration with interest, and it was interesting to see all of the technology companies, the tech bros, if you like, the leaders of Silicon Valley, the people who own or run the likes of Meta, of Google, of OpenAI, all lined up beside Trump, all with all very, very powerful people. One of the things that I think it might have been the Daily Show I was watching, where they mentioned that all of the people who were sitting behind Trump were essentially all the people who control all of the useful online communication tools that we use in the Western world. Essentially all of the ones that are essentially coming out of America. And that is true. It's quite interesting to think how much power was held in that small group of people. Including not just communications, but AI as well, because you had OpenAI there as well. So we've seen lots of interesting things happen. So we saw TikTok go offline. Trump then brought TikTok back. Amusingly, a lot of users of TikTok then migrated in the US to Little Red Book, not really realizing what the name it signifies in terms of the name of the platform, which is the sort of Chinese version of TikTok, which then led to all sorts of problems in terms of the Chinese version, because they then had to start scrambling to censor content, because obviously people in the US are going to talk about things that people didn't want people to talk about in China. So a very interesting way to show how West meets East, rather than East meets West, what they normally say, going slightly skewed and go slightly wrong, and showing how, for better or for worse, Trump's second presidency is certainly bringing the world to a bit of a climax, a bit of a upending it a bit, so it's making it a bit topsy-turvy. So that was one thing. We then also had tariffs. Trump's view on this is tariffs on everybody. If there's any country he doesn't agree with, short of threatening to possibly invade them, like Greenland, which I don't really understand what's going on there, he's kind of upending the apple cart once again by imposing tariffs on places like Canada, anywhere he thinks China, anywhere he thinks there is not a fair trade relationship. His view of making America great again, appears to be just to try and sort of tax people who don't necessarily do what America wants into compliance. And it'd be interesting to see how that works, whether they actually fall away and look at all alternative options, whether actually he pushes the likes of the EU close to other jurisdictions, and what China's going to do in the interim. So, interesting start. I think we're going to be a very, very interesting couple of years for technology. I expect to be talking about Hong Kong's Critical Infrastructure Act, ordinance rather, which is essentially the bill that's about to be passed, but I'll do a separate video on that because we still haven't actually got it finalised, and I'm giving a talk in public in March, at the end of March, and we should actually have the final text through by then. I really thought we'd have it by now. But the other thing I need to talk about, the elephant in the room, is it's not Trump, bizarrely, not Donald Trump, who's certainly making every sort of news story you pick up is related to him. It's what happened immediately before the Lunar New Year. And this is the Chinese AI solution called DeepSeek. It's essentially China's version of OpenAI's ChatGPT, a large language model, which works in much the same way as OpenAI's model. It produces much the same outputs, but is at a fraction of the cost in terms of the amount of technology it has to use, and needs considerably less computing power. It's incredibly efficient. And it's been a deal breaker. It's been available for free straight away, but you can access it now if you want to. The person who set it up, who started the company, was apparently working determinedly to get the version out that launched just before Chinese New Year as sort of a real disruptor, and is a hero. His hometown is now a tourist destination in China, so pretty impressive stuff. I'm not even sure OpenAI can claim that credit, but it raises a sort of I guess, an exciting thought of what's actually going to happen in terms of AI, because AI, as I've said on previous videos, has traditionally been dominated by the US. We haven't seen much come out of Europe, to be perfectly honest. It's been US focused and a US view of how AI should work. China now having a competing model which is essentially more cost effective. It upends NVIDIA, who've just released their new graphics cards, who are eventually they've become one of the biggest companies in the world, not because of their graphics card capabilities per se, but because of their skills in AI. And OpenAI, of course, was nobody really knew who they were sort of 3 or 4 years ago. They've become huge. So I see DeepSeek and AI now being the sort of center point of what I've described before as a bit of a tech war between China and the US. It stops being so much of a tech war as an AI war, an AI arms race, as especially each essentially entity, try to figure out who can be the most powerful, who could be the most reliable source of information in an AI context, who will be the most used tool, and who will essentially get global dominance. It's almost, this is going to make it look very old, but I can remember when Microsoft was trying to retain dominance in the PC world and the battles in terms of Microsoft Office. It's very similar to that, but with lots more at stake, because the AI is incredibly powerful, and whoever controls the AI is likely to become incredibly wealthy, and also control in some ways the way that people work, play, do research, because more and more people are using AI, and AI is quite frankly anywhere. In fact, going on to that, I don't know if you've been watching things online lately, it's very hard now to find an online article, unless you go into certain obvious, very reputable sources, online article or video that doesn't have some element of AI in it, whether it's AI generated video, AI generated voices and narration, which often these drive me nuts, particularly the squeaky lady one, that I'm sure you know what I mean, or some element where the entire video is AI. YouTube is flooded with them, and we'll see more of that as AI becomes more capable. But now we're going to see them coming not just in terms of US generation using US models, but also in terms of Chinese models too. DeepSeek in particular has spurred and has brought to the fore other AI companies operating in China, really bringing into play the sort of battle between East and West that we expect from Trump, but we were not necessarily expecting it to be fought in an AI battleground. Now, there are some issues. Probably the biggest problem that I think DeepSeek has is that it is in China. You're going to think, Paul, what do you mean by that? Well, it means that it's subject to Chinese laws relating to what information that can be shared and not shared. So there will be some censorship. If you ask a sensitive question about Chinese history or about Xi Jinping to DeepSeek, it will promptly try and change the subject, much as like Ernie, which was Baidu's AI bot, tried to do back when that was people using that. I don't know if anyone actually is using that now. I'm sure people are. It won't necessarily give you a straight answer. And that is because AI models are by their very nature going to be biased. People don't necessarily believe that that's the case, but they are based on what they've been fed. They are trained. If they're told to censor certain things, they will censor certain things. If they have been fed enough information, they will then regurgitate that information, and it may not be the actual truth. So that's a real problem. But it may mean that people are either, one, very wary of using Chinese AI models because of the censorship element, or more likely, maybe they just use them and maybe some of the censorship actually finds its way into the West. Maybe people start to actually question some of the view of what's happened in China that we have in the West, and try and decide what they think is actually right. I think see some concerns in this. We are essentially coming to the era there of AI being used as propaganda. But I can see this is going to be something we're going to see throughout this coming year. And I really don't know how we're going to counter that. The AI Act that we have in the EU is the only thing that really does regulate any AI in any real sense in terms of law. And that's the EU, which isn't exactly doing great in terms of the development of AI. So we will see. We'll see how that goes, but it's very, very interesting. One of the things that I've already seen is there are questions as to whether China's AI is being trained on US models. Probably is, quite frankly. I'm pretty sure that any AI model, if anyone's trying to develop AI, they will use other models to try and train that AI. We might end up in some sort of AI hegemony as a result, but who's in charge of that hegemony will be a thing we have to wonder about. But what is very important, and what I think people are forgetting, is that when you give information to an AI, that information is you're essentially giving away information to an entity and you don't know what they're going to do with it. So if you're sharing personal data, for example, you may be breaking applicable data protection laws if you're feeding them into a Chinese AI bot. I hope people in the US who are watching this realize that. Similarly, you've got to assume that anything you feed into it could be used in some other way. If you're giving it any data whatsoever, it's being fed and it's being used to train an AI. Nothing you put into anything you feed into an AI platform is going to be essentially only seen by you. It's always going to be used then as a training tool. You have no real knowledge of where things are going to be stored, what they're going to be used for. So you need to be a bit careful. But we're going to have a very, very interesting year. I mean, this is the first month is up and it's already been infinitely more interesting than I expected to be. I mean, the news is normally pretty boring and bleak for the month of January. This January has been red hot. I think for technology and advances in technology and king making in terms of king or queen making in terms of the likelihood of who's going to become dominant in the tech industry, whether we're going to see those tech bros that we all saw lining up behind Trump, some of them being displaced by people from other jurisdictions, whether they will become more powerful, and the impact that technology is going to have on our life in the year of 2025 as AI becomes so incredibly dominant, people start to lose their jobs, I think, even more than previously in terms of the way that it's being used in more and more industries. It's going to be a rocky little road. It's going to be quite a challenging one. And of course, we have in positions of power I suppose the best way to describe it is very dominant leaders who have their very own way of the way the world works. And perhaps we'll see some conflict in an AI setting, AI wars, Star Wars even. Who knows? Just hope there are no conventional wars, given that those things tend to lead to people getting horribly, horribly killed. But then I guess AI could do that too. So yeah, interesting times ahead, very interesting times ahead. I think this is probably the most interesting time to be involved in or invested in or a fan of technology, possibly since the dot-com crash of the 2000s, which is when I became a technology lawyer and what really got me into what I'm doing today. So hopefully it will inspire some people as inspired me, but let's see where this road leads. It's going to be an interesting time. Anyway, next video, probably Critical Infrastructure Act, Ordinance. I keep saying that, I'm being very British today. Let's see if it actually comes through. But if anything interesting happens in the world of tech, as I'm sure it will, I will post stuff on LinkedIn and hopefully see you guys soon. As I said, I'm giving a talk and I'll put details on my LinkedIn page in due course about the Critical Infrastructure Act and an explainer and what you need to be aware of. Basically, all you need to be doing is thinking, am I in control of critical infrastructure? And you know what? If you're running an AI, you may well be these days. I think that's the level we've got to. Anyway, on that positive note, have a fabulous, fabulous 2025 and enjoy your February. I will be in touch very soon. For now, take it easy. Bye-bye.